What's good, party people? This is Accord in the Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of having a thespian who's been featured in Peaky Blinders, and literally, Zack Snyder's Justice League. And if you guys haven't seen it already, and we've tweeted it a bunch, but this gentleman probably does Eric Bischoff in his heyday. I mean, Eric will probably tell you that he's in his heyday now, but the WCW era, Eric Bischoff maybe better than Eric, but he's the one, the only Sam Benjamin. Sam, what's going on?
What's going on with you? It's happy to be here. Love that intro. I feel like it's, my work is done.
Oh, and we got a tinge, a little bit of tidbit of Bischoff laugh. That's amazing. That's the bonus. But my goodness, I mean, first off, you've done so many things in your acting career. You've kind of relocated, recalibrated, your kind of home base just to, kind of further your, artistic acumen. But how did it all start for you? Because you love, obviously you love acting, you love wrestling, but you got to wait for it to converge. But how did one or the other start?
Well, I guess because this is obviously, we're coming at it from a wrestling angle as well as just an acting angle. But I guess I always had this, I was one of those lucky people where even when I was 4 years old and they said, go up at the front of the class and tell everyone what you want to be when you grow up. And to me, it was always to be an actor. And I think that came down to many things. One of the things was I was quite a shy kid. I didn't have much confidence. So I liked having a character with some lines to pretend to be confident and to pretend to be powerful and strong. And then my mum, I lived with my mum. She was pretty much brought me up as a single parent till I was about 11. And we moved around a lot. And I wasn't as close, as we moved, I wasn't as close to all the other kids in school. So I spent a lot of the time occupying myself. And that meant, sitting there with the action figures, with the wrestling figures, with, the Batman and Thundercats and all this, and doing the voices and creating the stories and kind of entertaining myself almost with these little, shows. And I would make, in terms of wrestling, I can remember, I had the ring and I had my wrestlers, and then I used to make an entranceway from cardboard boxes, and I used to have my CD player or tape player with the entrance themes ready to go and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I've always had that storyteller escape element. And then all my family, I grew up in a place called the Wirral near Liverpool, and a lot of my family, even though none of them are in the entertainment business, they all they're all movie buffs, movie geeks, cinephiles that, it'd be Saturday nights at my dad's flat watching action movies, Tuesday evenings at my nan's watching classic 50s, 60s Hollywood musicals. So I've always had that in me. So it was always the thing that I was most passionate about. And then actually getting into it is a whole different story. It's very difficult. But yeah, I guess that's kind of how it started.
I love it. And Mick Mac, actually, who is a often contributor in terms of the comment section on After 83 Weeks, he says, hey, Sam, cool Eric Bischoff promo. And in true Mick Mac fashion, you can't just give a compliment. He goes, England will be decimated in the ashes. So that's Mick Mac.
That's okay. I take it he's Australian, is he?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
But so in terms of when you kind of had the aspirations of wanting to be an actor and nobody in your family really kind of taking it up other than just, basically partaking in a movie and what have you, what was the reaction?
It was a reaction of, on the one hand, because there's sometimes a blessing to growing up in a family that people throw around the word working class a lot. I don't know what the true definition of it is, but you could definitely say some of the elements of my family some people would describe as working class. So and in my immediate family, I was the first person to have the chance to go to university, so to actually educate myself beyond age 18. So for them, it was, especially my mum and dad, they were kind of like, hey, we've always struggled for money. We don't want you to struggle for money. So ideally, we'd want you to get into a job like being a lawyer or something like that has a more secure, high salary kind of deal. But at the same time, they always did say, do what you enjoy, because life is short, and you might as well have a crack at whatever you want to have a crack at.
Right.
So I guess I was looking that way, although it did, I guess, from my area as well, that's not obviously, Liverpool has many icons and the Beatles and a big history of performing, but at the same time, it's not the same as, say, London or New York or LA. So to say in my school as I'm studying, like, oh yeah, I want to be an actor, you just get laughed out the room.
Wow.
Especially with speaking to I think you guys call them guidance counselors.
Yes.
I remember we call them career advisors. I remember being age 14 and sitting down with one, and literally she pretty much laughed in my face when I said actor. And then when she just refused to accept actor as an answer, I then kind of offered her like similar kind of televisual kind of roles, like, oh, well, what about, a presenter or a TV journalist, or, being on the radio and things like that. And then even then she'd whip out like a little piece of paper and be like, look at the statistics of success in these fields, 2%, and then was like, no, what you want to be looking at is a great job with great earning potential, go and be a trading standards officer. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I ended up in this room talking to someone about being a trading standards officer. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But it was like, hang on a minute. How did I get from actor to trading standards officer? So, I got, the school system, needs some work. And I think a lot of people's dreams are stolen before they've even had the chance to attempt it. So that's one of the things that I always, whenever I talk or whatever, the work that I do or the shows I've been in, or I always, hopefully I'd like to be an example to, young people of like, go for it. Mm-hmm. It's sometimes you've got to listen to what people are saying around you, but sometimes you just got to close, you listen and then you go, right, I've heard it, but I'm still going for it. I'm ignoring you. So I guess that's what I did.
Yeah, I mean, it's brought you across seaboards to do, and I mean, where's that kind of career counselor now? Did she see?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, did she see you in the Feud? Did you see you in Peaky Blinders? Like, that'd be a cool
Probably
little
not.
like, hey, remember me? Remember me?
Yeah, but it's all, she was just doing her job, and it's just, if I can inspire some more people. And also, as well, I have to give a shout out to my, both my grandmothers were a big influence on me, but one of them in particular with the career, she was called Shirley, and she was like a self-made woman, which was quite hard in that era. She built her career, and but she always kind of believed it, and always she'd buy me books about acting, and she just always supported. So she was a big factor in that.
That's absolutely amazing, and oh geez, Mick, he says, what are the things that go on your feet other than shoes?
Trainers.
Oh, more. So I'm from the my mom's side of the family from Fiji, right? So
okay,
we call flip-flops.
Oh yeah.
Apparently he says thongs,
we don't say that.
Right.
We say flip-flops.
Okay, because I was like, hey, well, what was Lita wearing above her, her skateboard pants, right? And what is the Cisco song? What was that about?
I'm with Cisco. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Hey, there you go.
Sorry, Mick.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Mick. But it's funny because it's funny that you were 14 when you got that bit of advice. I've got my youngest is 14, right? And I see the things that he's doing and what have you. And I'm all like, man, in that vein of, basically handing down what you know. But if you kind of think about it, right? We've evolved as human beings, and at the very least, technology wise, right? In the last 20 years, think about when we're kind of similar in age, right? The two-way pagers and then the cell phone with the snake on it and whatever. They're two different things, in the early 2000s, right? And then look at what we have now. So I often go like, am I handing him outdated information? And you can't help what, that counselor did or anybody that kind of thwarted you, just due to the fact that, again, what they had done and done well or had seen done well had been the course of action for 70 plus years, theoretically. But in the last 20 years, it's almost like, does anyone have a typewriter right now?
Tom Hanks does. I know he loves them, but but yeah, no, you're right. And I think the other thing is, even if you go back, there's a lot of doom and gloom in the world today. But when you look at it, and believe it or not, my degree subject was actually history. And even though there's a lot of things we still need to fix and a lot of progress we still need to make, at the same time, when you look at things like that, like compared to our dad's generation and their dad's generation and their mother's generation, like the difference, like, you'd work your job, you'd work the job that your dad worked, and then you'd go home and you've got, well, I know in England anyway, you'd have a TV with 3 channels on it, and that's it. Like, there's no way to communicate with anyone else. There's no way to publish a short or a think piece or a blog, right, or electronically for free contact anyone in the world. So I think your 14-year-old, the world is their oyster.
There you go. As it is for you, which I mean, I absolutely love the fact that you kind of just was like, I'm going for it. Where am I going? We're going to Hollywood because Hollywood. But to kind of, have you looked at your Wikipedia page recently?
I looked at it when it first appeared because I was like, oh, I've got a Wikipedia page. I haven't looked at it recently. Why? What is it?
I don't know. I mean, and you can kind of provide clarity, but it actually says that you basically learned Shakespeare from Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, the story behind that, it was actually one of the turning points of my career. I went to university, Reading University. I was actually studying history, but as extra, I guess you guys would say extra credit, we would say extra modules. Yeah. I was doing film, I was studying theatre, and I was basically whoring myself out to any director that would be putting on their own plays, their own shorts, their own films. So it just so happened that this really talented director auditioned me. I got cast in a production of Angels in America, which is made into an HBO thing, several years ago with Al Pacino. Mm-hmm. And I got cast in that thing and did it. And then this group called the National Student Drama Festival, they go around the country looking at student productions. And my director entered it into this competition, and they picked 10 productions and put them on at this big festival every year. They didn't pick the show, but they asked a few of the actors to audition, and they do this summer, I don't know whether they still do, they do this summer training program, and they audition hundreds of actors that they pick, and then they pick like 15, and then you do this intense training. So I auditioned and I got in and was one of the 15, and then we were getting trained by this guy called John Britton, who was just phenomenal. He's not like a well-known household name, but just, a theatre guy that just knows his stuff. And then I think it was on, the second day, they were like, we've asked you all here today and we haven't told you what we're going to do, but we've got a little surprise teacher for you. He's just flown over from Vancouver shooting X-Men. And then the next thing, Patrick Stewart walks in and he was like, I was thinking I could teach you guys a bit of Shakespeare. What do you think about that? And we were like, what? So, and then obviously he told us his story about his career, and took us through his take on Shakespeare and acting and all that, and and that was a moment when I thought, oh, actually, I was 19, and I thought, you know what? Not because I got picked for this, and then Patrick Stewart is teaching me Shakespeare. I was like, maybe this thing's doable. Maybe I'm good enough. Maybe it's worth a shot. And also, I kind of learned as well, Patrick Stewart, he's from quite a working class background, even though he's very well spoken. He's actually from, he's a working class lad from the north of England in Huddersfield. And he, again, lots of struggle that you wouldn't expect. Because, we just see him as this, very, established, well-spoken, kind of older actor that's been around the block and done it all. But yeah, so that was a big moment for me.
I mean, if you could see me now, it almost seems like you could see yourself through Patrick Stewart. And I mean, my goodness, I mean, for a certain generation, like you said, he's flying in from Vancouver, filming X-Men. You know, for me, as obviously Professor X and Professor Xavier, but for me, that's Captain Picard. Next Generation. I'm like, holy smoke.
Icon.
Yeah. He's still meme today. My goodness. And that's when you've kind of.
What's the one? Is it the clap one? There's a really good one when he's
clap
clapping.
One or the,
Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yes. That's amazing. But I mean, so in terms of like going about it from age 19, and having this, I mean, this is a literal legend standing before you and teaching you the tricks of the trade amongst a class of people, right? So where did you go from there?
So I finished. So that was whilst I was at university. I carried on studying my degree. I carried on doing many plays and many films on their student production scheme. And then by the time I was getting to the end of my degree, I knew unequivocally that I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a professional actor. But then I also thought, well, hang on. Again, this is a very UK thing. In the UK, it's like, we have a very vigorous training tradition. And it's like over here, it's like when you're an actor, you should go to drama school, which is separate to university. And I think there's like 12 or 15 accredited drama schools, not universities, not short courses, not acting courses. They're drama schools, and they do this very traditional, vigorous training to prepare you for the industry. So I thought, you know what, if I'm going to devote my life to this craft, I need to at least attempt to get into drama school, because if I don't and I'm out there and things aren't going well, I'll always wonder what if. But drama school's expensive and I had no money. And I was in debt. So I thought, right, my game plan was I'm going to move back up to live with my mum in Liverpool, and I'm going to save up money. I'm going to get any job for as much money as possible, work that full time while saving money, and then I'm going to audition for drama school on the sly and then get in hopefully the year after. So initially it didn't work to plan. I could not get any job. I couldn't get any job. And even when I went to the job center, because you sign on and you're on benefits and then you feel terrible. And the woman there, she would literally just said, I don't know why you've come here, because there's no jobs. There's literally no jobs. So eventually, I think a month after that, I did get a job in a bank, weirdly, and totally blagged it and said, oh, yeah, I want to get into, banking long term. And, this is a career step for me, blah, 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 blah. So, and then whilst I was doing that on the weekends, I was going down to London auditioning for drama school while saving money. And then it was a terrible year because I wasn't really going out as well because I was saving the money. We didn't have dating apps then, and I didn't know any women. So I was like, and I couldn't afford to go out, and I was just like, oh. But auditioned for drama school, got in to Drama Studio London, and then went there the next year, moved down to London, did my training there whilst working like 3 jobs whilst doing that as well.
Wow.
And then graduated from there. And then that was 12 years ago. And then I've been acting professionally ever since.
Brava. And you know
Thank you.
what? Yeah, and that's a bit of your je ne sais quoi, or that you're like, I could see myself as the branch manager of this
Yeah,
bank,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know,
I can see myself earning filthy bonuses.
but you're like, no, I'm going to pay for my craft and drive or catch a train
Yeah.
eons, hours just to probably, hopefully, get a nugget of success, right?
Exactly.
Now, in terms of obviously the struggle and the plight of an artist, right? Landing that first big role is, I mean, it's everything. It's almost like an accumulation of everything that you work for up until that point. So
Yeah.
what was that like, getting your first like acting role? I mean, you had stuff before you landed the few, but I mean, that what was that like?
Well, I don't know. There's different answers to the question of what was my first big role. My first TV role was in a daytime medical drama called Doctors on BBC, and I played a how would you describe him? I played this like womanizing pizza delivery boy. And I remember my first line on television was the girl opens the door. And then I'm standing there holding the pizza, and then I look down and then I go, large pepperoni. So that was my first line, which I feel like set the tone for my career. And so did that, and then I started getting more TV stuff. And I did a thing on Sky called Little Crackers, which is a comedy, and then started to get more stuff. I think Peaky Blinders was 2014. And then, it just started building and building and building. So I don't know what you describe as the big one, in terms of, big, Peaky Blinders, Doctor Who, Justice League, they're all massive names, massive companies, massive characters. But then, like, my role in them was not, say, as impactful as, say, in BBC's War of the Worlds, which I did 2 years ago, which isn't as well known, but it was on BBC One, and I'm really, it was a really meaty scene. So yeah, I mean, every win, it's kind of hard as well, because if you're a workaholic and you're just always looking for the next thing, you have to remind yourself to celebrate the wins. So, but this, recently, I've just wrapped on a lead role, my first lead role in a feature film in The Payday, which I also wrote. So that is a big, that's probably the big role. But that's, now I'm in LA and I'm here for the, as someone might say in the 90s, I hear that this is where the big boys play. And this is what I'm here to, you want a war? Yeah. So to me, the big role is coming. So
I like it. I like it. And McMac, I think we all agree. It is, yes, it's mum, not mom. Remember,
he's really pushing this.
I'm just saying. But he also says he'll drop your name to fellow Australian Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, brilliant!
Reportedly,
I love Chris. He's great.
Yeah, I mean, reportedly is set to play Terry Bollea, right, or Hulk Hogan.
Right? No, well, yeah, exactly, and I do think that is actually, that casting is. It sounds great to me.
I'm just
saying, be a great fit.
Yeah, you would be a great fit, 100%.
Yeah.
McMac says, ask about Neighbors.
Oh yeah, do you guys know about Neighbors in America?
I got a promo video on YouTube right before this, but for those who are uninclined, school us on Neighbors, good sir.
I'm not going to give the expert schooling on it, but Neighbors is it's an Australian soap opera that is, I don't know how it's perceived in Australia, but in the UK, it's been going for so long, and Brits watch it. It's just been a fixture of television in Britain for so long. And there's actually two, there's Neighbours and Home and Away. And there's usually 2 channels in the UK that show it at the same time. They're both on at like 6 o'clock, and it's like most people either watch Neighbours or Home and Away.
Wow.
I haven't watched it for years, but I did go through a phase of watching Home and Away with my nan. It was very enjoyable, and as a Brit, you're watching it for like this sunny vision of Australians, just they're by the beach and everything just seems to be much more warmer, and all their problems seem to be more fun problems than our British problems to us anyway. And obviously there was lots of really beautiful people on there to look at as well. There's an element of like that Baywatch factor as well.
Yeah, Baywatch is definitely a thing in this. Yeah, and Carl Kennedy rules.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I know who he means, but I wasn't like an aficionado.
No, 100%. Which I mean, but one thing that in addition to the acting, right, is your proliferation in the world of pro wrestling. And I mean, what was the movie that you did that was essentially pro wrestling based?
Yeah, we're in post production now, so I directed my first short film last year, and the title will make wrestling fans think of something. It's called Screw Job, and it's actually about a working class female British pro wrestler who's working for an independent company, an independent promotion in the UK, and she's got injuries piling up. She's not getting any younger, but she's never really got a shot. And then basically the booker of the promotion decides, kind of quite haphazardly, to give her a shot at the belt. But then something's happened, and then she's thrown into a situation where she's got to decide, like, how much she's going to toe the company line, let's say. So I just wanted to direct something. And then I thought, you know what movie would I love to see? So I just thought, I'm going to write a movie that I would love. And I haven't seen many filmmakers make, like, I've seen, people in the wrestling world make wrestling content, but I just haven't seen many, like, a real, I don't know, like, people in the filmmaking or independent filmmaking scene actually make something that's a film in its own right, but also happens to be in the pro wrestling world. So hopefully I've done both the film and the pro wrestling world justice.
And I hope you did, the two worlds justice more so than, because I also have like MMA kind of content, and we just had Bruce preparing on Netflix with Halle Berry. And it was such a letdown because she was supposed to be like training with actual MMA fighters. Some of my friends who actually trained her and everything. And then when you saw the movie, for anybody that's uninitiated and doesn't know MMA and how it works and everything like that, it's great, right? Okay. I watched it with my sister. It's great. Yeah. But maybe it's just one where I know too much, right? And when every fight scene ends in Halle Berry's character getting flipped, and like you punch and you literally flip, right? Or calling everything a body slam in the case of Screwjob, and it's just like, So thank you.
I have to give it a watch. I'm not an MMA, like I casually watch it, but I'm not an MMA expert. So, but I'll definitely check it out.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, for what it is, it's awesome, but I think it's one where I know too much. But knowing too much of pro wrestling and the entertainment field, in the instance of Screwjob, like that actually melded pretty well.
Yeah, hopefully. And it's like I always say, I'm this weird. I think there's different kinds of wrestling fans, isn't there? We all have our own tastes, but I feel like quite a throwback wrestling fan, because it's like even though, I'm an actor, I'm a screenwriter, I've just directed my first film, but at the same time, I'm in awe of professional wrestlers. And I actually think, I don't think you can make as much comparisons to actors and wrestlers as some casual people do. Right. It's a totally, yes, there's the performance element to it, but I did one training session in pro wrestling with a guy called Greg Burridge in his Lucha Britannia school, because we did a film together called I Am Vengeance with Stu Bennett, and he invited me along. And I was like, oh my God, like I've been growing up watching this stuff all my life, and I've never actually attempted it. And I did this, just one, 3-hour kind of basics session, and it was the hardest physical thing I've ever done in my life. And I'm in awe of professional wrestlers and what they can do. So I'm not one of those people that like intends to or thinks, one of those actors like, let's blur the lines and like, yeah, it's all the same thing. Like I'm quite old school in that sense. Like I think, but at the same time, that's why hence, I'm thinking, well, but I could play, even in, because I was thinking like, what would be, Eric Bischoff as an example. Like I'm looking at, you hear the Hulk Hogan movie gets made, Fighting With My Family comes out, or, The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, and you watch it and I'm like, I've never had like, a Chris Hemsworth, Hulk Hogan physique, and nor do I pretend to have the athletic prowess of a pro wrestler. But then you go, but a cocky, charming, charismatic, guy who, holds the microphone and, spit talks and book stuff and messes with people and, kills the competition. That's the kind of role that I'd love to play within that world. So obviously I'd love, I'm very much keen to get opportunities in that world, but I'm not pretending that I could do it in the ring. I went on a big weird tangent then, didn't I?
No, I think it's a perfect lead up, because I want to know, in terms of your watching, your viewing of pro wrestling, like what era was that?
So I always remember. So basically, I mean, I maybe I'm a lucky generation, because I basically grew up watching it. I kind of caught the back end of the kind of classic Hollywood, the classic like Hulk Hogan, Red and Yellow, Ultimate Warrior. I kind of caught the back end of that. And like, obviously as a Brit, the British Bulldog was one of the big presence. And I also think, just on the sidetrack, I think Davey Boy Smith doesn't get anywhere near enough credit for what he did especially for the British market in wrestling is huge. And he was the British Hulk Hogan. He was and in, as a Brit growing up in the 90s, as a young kid, you've got Batman, you've got He-Man, you've got all these like macho, inspiring, strong male iconography figures. And then you got like Arnold and Stallone and all this, and they're all American. And the Bulldog was one of the few like larger than life characters and personas, and big, I don't know, kind of flying the flag guys that was mixing it up with all the Americans and holding his own. And I think he was a big hero of mine. And then obviously we drift into, as I got into it, I was hooked on that. And then as we got into it, you then go into the Monday Night Wars. So obviously I was still really young watching it, but I always remember in the UK, Raw was on a Friday night. So they just replay it on a Friday night on Sky Sports. And I'd go at the weekends, I'd stay at my dad's, and we would watch Monday Night Raw, but on a Friday night, father and son. And, he kind of enjoyed it, but he wasn't enjoying it as much as, as I was. But then I remember one Friday, I turned up and I was like, right, Monday, let's watch Raw. And he was like, nah, let's not. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, no. He's like, I found something better. And I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, you got to watch this other one. It's on TNT. And I was like, what? And then, because over here in the UK, again, weird quirks, the Cartoon Network when Cartoon Network finished airing on cable, it turned into TNT. And so the first thing on a Friday on TNT was Nitro. And he was like, "Is this other wrestling on TNT?" And he was like, "And there's this guy Goldberg. Oh my God, he is amazing. He just goes in there and like, he just wins in like 30 seconds. He's amazing." So he was loving, he just loved Goldberg. And then so I was very, attached to WWF. And but I thought, okay, well, my dad's forcing us to watch this other one. And then suddenly you start watching it, and then you have a loyalty to the one you first watched.
Right. Yeah.
And you're kind of resisting it. And then you'd flip the channels, like, it's true. We all used to flip the channels. But then after a while, it was like, there's no question that Nitro is better. There is no question. So basically from like 97, 98, I actually thought 97 WWF was actually probably still the best year in WWF history for me. You had Bret Hart, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and and then the emergence for me, and then the emergence of Stone Cold Steve Austin alongside Bret turning bitter. And for me, that is, even though they only wrestled twice, that's probably the greatest like two-man story in wrestling to me. But then once that was kind of going, I was all WCW. And then once I got into, obviously watching, just the NWO, it was just this feeling that this company was trying to take over the other company. And Eric Bischoff's presence and the way, like, Hollywood Hogan, he was just the ultimate like champion that you just want to get battered. Like, you used to come out, cheat every week, hide behind all his cronies, and Bischoff would come and like talk smack and like, but hide behind people, and you just like, oh, these guys, and every week they just sheer numbers, something that I don't think you see enough of. Right. Again, maybe I'm old school, is because that just that element of, especially as a kid, when you're like, it'll be someone who's just wrestling fair and square and trying to win the match, and then just 10 NWO guys just come and beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what, how can we? And every week you'd be like, this is getting ridiculous. And it just built and built. And because I always remember hearing, in hindsight, as older, Kevin Sullivan, he was saying, heat, you've got to make the audience like really just get angry and like frustrated and really push them to boiling point. And that was what Nitro did. And then obviously you had all the emerging people coming up, and just everyone was the roster of wrestlers they had. And obviously I'm I'm biased because we know I'm an Eric Bischoff fan, but I just thought it was some of the best television, even beyond wrestling. And I think that's why I had the millions of viewers watching. So that's basically was my, when I was a kid, that was when I was really coming into it. And then when it got to, I was absolutely devastated when WWFE bought WCW. And then when they did the invasion, I literally stopped watching wrestling for about 2 years.
Wow.
Because I was like, it's just, I can't believe how, like, obviously I think the main memory of like, that was beautiful was the Hogan Rock. Showed like that was like one of the few awesome kind of WCW, WWF moments that they both, was masterful. And then I kind of switched off for a few years, and then eventually I came back in, and then it's been kind of, what it's like. Then you just get sucked in again, and I've had a few years where I've jumped off again. So there's like, I don't know whether this is the case for everyone, but sometimes you have gaps in your knowledge. Like I came back in like probably like 2002, 2003.
Right.
But I kind of fell off during the kind of the heyday of John Cena. I wasn't really there for that. I can't even remember why. Just kind of, kind of after Eddie Guerrero passed, like that kind of thing. But then I kind of came back in, I'd say around 2013, 2014. just off the back of CM Punk brought me back in, and then just it's an addiction, isn't it? And you kind of have these, but that's the beauty, isn't it? It's like somebody said, you sometimes it's the nature of the business because it's constant and they've got to constantly make stuff.
Right.
Sometimes it's going to be amazing, sometimes it's going to be average, sometimes they're going to miss a trick, but then when it's great, it's untouchable, isn't it? As entertainment, as a sport, it's magic when it's done brilliantly.
Yeah, when it's done brilliantly. Yeah, otherwise, it's like kind of, I don't know. What is it? Kevin Smith trying to direct or write for Batman, or just we're gonna hide behind a rock. That's it. That's kind of what you would do with your pro wrestling fandom. It's just like, oh, I might not watch that right now.
It's like but yeah, and so I think in terms of it, and I make people laugh with this in the industry, but I've been a professional screenwriter for 10 years, and actor, and people say, what are your influences? And I was like, I've learned so much about story and drama and comedy and tension and payoffs from pro wrestling than a lot of other things. It's like you hear Eric talk a lot about it. Like he often talks, in terms of it being a show and being a story and the 3 acts and all that kind of thing. And, stack the odds against the hero and you get sympathy and, all those kind of moments so it's really influenced me. And a lot of the personalities and the wrestlers have really inspired me, even though I'm not a wrestler, but, the likes of, the British Bulldog as a Brit, Bret Hart and his defiant attitude and his belief in himself and just his sheer detailed skill set, and then Stone Cold's just like relentless, just kick ass. Like I'm just going to go in there and just mix it up, come what may. Right down to Chris Jericho and his cheeky. One-liner creating machine that he is, and you can go all across the board just the way that different wrestlers have done it. And so it's a big source of influence for me and a big source of inspiration.
I think it's great. And you know what? For me, everything is pro wrestling, right? In the instance of Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and even the gentleman who's just the president here in the States, all WWE Hall of Famers. Right?
Yeah.
So there's that, and when you look at, professional sport, whether it be Muhammad Ali, who grew up watching,
big time.
Right?
Big time.
Floyd Mayweather, Mike Tyson, all pro wrestling fans.
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor is doing Vince and Flair, just kind of like a mismatch or like an awesome little tribute. And he's pretty much made, I want to say that he's made at this point more than Ric Flair himself doing a kind of parody. It's crazy.
Yeah. But the thing is as well is that and I know a lot of people that just watch boxing or just watch UFC and they don't watch pro wrestling, and they don't realize that a lot of their heroes have just stolen from pro wrestling. I mean, Muhammad Ali being the big example.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But yeah, it's just all the tricks. And it's like, what was it? I don't know who said that. Did Jim Cornette first say it? Did he say UFC is the best pro wrestling company out there? It just so happens that it's a shoot or, something like that. Or it just so happens that it's not choreographed endings, or it's not, they haven't, they don't. So I think that's, there's a lot of truth in that. And for me, just to give you my, because we all imagine, we all do the armchair booking and we all go, oh, I would have done this or I would have done this. But I really do my little, and I think it's why AEW has really flown and really took it to WWE recently, because I feel like, and I say this as a screenwriter of TV and film, is that I think it feels like they need more wrestling brains, not TV episode brains in there, because it still has to be told like a sport. Yes, there's colorful characters. Yes, they're kind of like real life superheroes. In terms of visuals, in terms of their personas and the colorful costumes and all that. But at the same time, like if you lose the sports element and just the element of the basics of how about it's like any good boxing match that sells a lot of tickets. If you have, and that's what Ali knew. If he said he watched, is it Gorgeous George?
Gorgeous George, yeah, and Freddie Blassie.
Yeah, and he was just like, suddenly I realized that I could sell tickets for people who would want to see me get beaten up. And I think that's, it's the old ways are the best. The old rules are the best. If you get two wrestlers and loads of people want one of them to win and loads of people want one of them to get battered, that is when you get people in the building and get people watching. So I think sometimes there's like it can drift too much towards, it's TV and it's like Marvel but real life. And I think to an extent, but then it's still got to have that sporty grit as well.
Yeah, and it's funny because
but it's all taste, isn't it? That's obviously my opinion,
right?
For other people, different flavors.
I'm in agreement, and obviously there are people that like the flippy shit, not a lot of context to it, or maybe the lucha style, but it's just like for me, to kind of coin another Cornette-ism, right? If you haven't seen it, it's new to you, and there's a large consensus of the pop culture lexicon that either they pretty much dismiss pro wrestling and its fans and what have you, but when it happens in another genre, in their genre. If it happens in movie, that's in The Rock. If it happens in didn't Run DMC do like an alternative DX theme song?
Like, yeah.
So it, and it works.
References. There's loads of even in loads of rap songs. There's loads of references. Even I think like House of Pain, Jump Around. I can't remember, but I'm sure there's a wrestling reference in there. It's but I think it's who knows. It's fascinating to see how it happens and because for me it's like I would love, like my dad passed away a few years ago, but my dad to me is like the market they've lost, which is he was a forklift truck driver, loves football, loves having a beer, likes a good fight. And like Goldberg made him watch WCW Nitro every week. You only need one wrestler to make someone like that watch it. And for a lot of people, it was Austin. But I think grabbing that sports like bro fan again would be like, I sometimes think about that when I'm watching it. I'm like, would my dad like this? Would my dad be into this? And it's like, oftentimes you're like, he wouldn't. He'd watch the boxing match, but he wouldn't watch this. And I think it's harder to grab that audience now because you've got UFC, but I think it'd be an audience that I'd love to see more involved in it, because then you get that, like, because when you watch Nitro, which I often do, you look at the crowd and it's like you see squads of like dudes who are just there for a great Friday night, who aren't necessarily comic book shirt wearing, and then as well on the flip side, you go back and you watch Ravishing Rick Rude on 1993 WCW, and you're like, there's loads of women in the audience, and they're there for him, and they don't care that all the guys in the audience hate him. You hear the girlish kind of screams within the crowd noise, which again, I'm not to say, I think they have actually got a big female audience now, and there's a big female wrestling scene, which is great.
Yes.
So I think, maybe things are looking up. Maybe we will get that more. It's just the more diverse and the more different types of people in the audience, the more, I remember, I don't know if it was Brett or Ric Flair, where I heard they would like be near the curtain at the beginning of the night and they'd listen to the pitch of the audience and where the vocals were, and was it girlish, was it kids, was it older dudes, was it elder statesmen, grandparents that are there, want to see blood, all those kind of things. So yeah.
And it's funny, to kind of echo your sentiment, Jim Cornette, he says, it was something that kind of got floated around the Memphis territory when he started up, but he was just like, you could tell, a good barometer of where the business is going if, and it's kind of chauvinistic, but like the girls that are in the audience, right? And if they're tens, business is looking up.
Hilarious,
right? But if it's not, and there or
that sounds like something Cornette would say.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just like that's it, and it's kind of different, but kind of a similar kind of take. It like boxing. You kind of know where boxing is in terms of the pop culture lexicon on who's focused on the heavyweight division, right? And that kind of sets the tone for the rest of it. You put on a good heavyweight fight, then the rest of the card will be stacked. Well, those are the things. So boxing, it's how the heavyweights are doing and how well the girls look in the audience in wrestling.
Yeah, and I think actually, you know what? I was just thinking about it, and there is a real. I think that's one of they've really like the way the female wrestling scene has developed over the last few years has been really, and even, if you go back to when you're watching it when you're a kid, like you couldn't imagine, like there's been times in WWE in recent times where I've not actually, there hasn't been a male fight on the card that I'm absolutely excited for, but then there's a women's match. I'm like, we're going to see some serious pro wrestling here. Like, and sometimes I feel like, especially in WWE recently, it's partly because the kind of women's kind of expansion within the card is quite fresh. They're doing a lot of just well-told classic stories that they don't feel like they need to reinvent because we haven't seen that main event with the women. We haven't seen that gimmick match with the women. So I feel like it's been really solid and just been some great heel and face dynamics as well.
I like it, which, I mean, in terms of some of your favorites, and I don't like to do top 10s or top 15s or whatever, but in terms of wrestling personalities that you're influenced by, and you can go as long as you like, but who are some of the personalities that drew you in or still continue?
I think that I've mentioned some of the classics. Obviously, when I was a kid, the colorful, the colorful characters of Hogan and Warrior were obviously big. Like as a kid, they were like the two action figures that were like. But and then British Bulldog, Bret Hart, big one. And I still think is him in '97 is probably the pinnacle of just promo, in ring, everything. Who I love the whole Hart Foundation in that Canada America thing. I was like all in for the Hart Foundation. Obviously, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Amazing. I mean, I respect and I love The Rock. He just didn't. He didn't. I liked him as a heel better. I like to hate him as a heel better. And then who else? I'm trying to think of more recent ones. I mean, loads of them. I'll probably forget loads of them. I'm trying to think of someone like in the WCW era. Like, I love Goldberg. I loved Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner, or at least loved to hate him when he was a heel. I got a real soft spot for Disco Inferno, and I loved, just there was loads of elements of the WCW. I feel like they don't get there, like even like Raven and the Flock.
Oh yeah,
obviously Sting, like that whole talk about iconic storytelling, like when he just didn't speak and just pointing the baseball bat with like no facial expression. Just when have we seen anything like that, and just how long it took? I mean, Goldberg Hogan on Nitro with the Georgia Dome. Matches. Just that to me is pro wrestling personified. Heel versus face, rabid crowd, heel trying everything to cheat to win. I'm just trying to think of more recent people. I mean, there's a lot of people in AEW that excite me at the moment in terms of like Hangman Page. I think he's a big star. Obviously, MJF is just he's saving heel wrestling on his own.
Yep.
It feels like, and hopefully it's going to spark lots of other things. Some of the like Britt Baker is just again another one, just has that old school personality. She just gets it, and she gets me excited, whether it be I want her to lose or whether she just fires up someone else. So yeah, I guess those would be some of the. I'm probably forgetting, I'm forgetting loads. Obviously, favorite non-wrestler Bischoff, obviously. But yeah, so I guess those are the ones that spring to mind for sure.
I think it's absolutely amazing, and you're kind of speaking to my heart. So you got no problems, no contention here. I dig it. Anybody who, I think Brett, because of Brett, kind of gets a lot of, heat from the fans and even wrestlers when you think about, him having a picture of himself, in the foyer of his house.
And it's like what I was listening to Cornette and Brian Last talk about. There was a documentary on Brett, and Brian Last said something along the lines of, you know what, Brett takes himself so seriously, and it's made me realize actually we need more wrestlers like that these days, and it is so true. And again, it's like history's told by the winners, and as well as me always banging on about how WCW was actually so much better at the time, and they had many original wrestlers. It wasn't like they just stole all of them. But the other thing as well is, from my point of view, especially being British, Heart Foundation, Bulldog. My first WWF live experience was one night only, and the main event was Shawn Michaels versus British Bulldog for the European title, and I'm still angry about it. Like, it infuriates me. And even though this would be my my equivalent of a promo, but even though I acknowledge Shawn Michaels is phenomenal in the ring, like as a wrestling fan, like I still am burned by that main event when the hometown hero was cheated out of the European title, and he still hasn't got his comeuppance for it. So so kind of, I guess that chimes in with the whole Brett. I do feel like he's another one, even though he's highly regarded. I just think in the ring, he's untouchable. He's just untouchable.
Yeah.
In terms of you watch his, it's just But it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, fear not, Sam Benjamin, because Shawn Michaels' hairline has caught up to him. So there's the comeuppance there. If you've seen,
well, I mean, the thing is now it's even though like in '97 I hated his guts. That's probably what he wanted, number one.
Yeah.
But number two, like when he did, you have that nostalgia, and when he did come back, and I still remember when he came back for the Elimination Chamber, and he did that one-off match, non-sanctioned, with Triple H at SummerSlam, and he just wore jeans, and it was like I was really behind him. So we love the nostalgia as well, and and also, like, he's the kind of person, again, wrestling brains. I feel like he's the kind of person that they do need teaching the new people. They should have people like Shawn and Austin and Brett teaching the new generation. I think also, even though it would never happen, but I just feel like because he's so specific, I feel like, and it's never going to happen, but WWE should have Cornette on the payroll, my God, because he just when you hear him talk about the matches, and he says, even if it was good, he's like, this is great. Do you know what would have been better? And you go, oh my God, that would have been incredible. I mean, what a wrestling brain. You've mentioned him a few times, and he's just what a wrestling brain, unbelievable.
No, absolutely. I mean, Cornette, again, not that I agree with everything that he says, but I mean, when it comes to wrestling,
and he says a lot of things to provoke.
Oh yeah,
well. Yeah, but that's his thing. That's his thing.
That's his thing. Which obviously, you are an amazing, brilliant brain, a thing in Hollywood, I feel. But
thank you.
there have been a lot of people who have shaped who you are, not just the thespian, but as the person. So take as long as you need, Sam Benjamin. Let's get some shout outs out of the way.
You want me to shout out some people? Is
Yeah,
that okay?
absolutely.
I'm going to shout out. I'm just going to be very specific and shout out Eric Bischoff and Christy Reports for Christy for bringing my Eric Bischoff promo to Eric, and Eric for your reaction and for being so complimentary. And yes, I can drop my accent when needed. And yeah, you and Eric, you've inspired me as an overall, both in life and as a person and an on screen persona. So that's my shout out for today.
I absolutely dig it, man. You are a treasure. You are a treasure. And let's put some Twitterverse, social media. Like we need a Eric Bischoff biopic. There's a reason why. There's an After 83 Weeks podcast that has pretty much spanned over 83 weeks, right? With
Yeah.
more content here. So I want Sam Benjamin as Eric Bischoff in the Eric Bischoff biopic. What do you say? Right? Now, yeah, absolutely. Now, for those who want to get that to happen, to follow you and all your exploits in the ring, in Hollywood, and otherwise, where can they find you on social media, my man?
At Sam Benjamin Now, NOW, on Twitter and Instagram. At Sam Benjamin on Vero, and at Sam.Benjamin on TikTok, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, just say hello, and I'll say hello back.
There you go. And it is right here in the description here, because again, you want to be under the auspices of the brilliance of one Sam Benjamin. I say, I know I do. There you go. Well, thank you guys for joining us here at According to Woods. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I mean, Sam, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
Correct.
Hell yes. Well, if you don't believe me, you don't believe Sam and subscribing to the podcast, well, here's a pro wrestler, Zeta Zang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zang. Make sure you